I was checking my email when a notification lit up my phone screen. It was a text from my fiancée Amanda to her bridesmaids. My heart stopped as I read the first line, Operation Humiliate Roger. 2 days before our wedding, I discovered her elaborate plan to publicly embarrass me during our vows. 5 years together, and she wanted to turn the most important day of my life into her viral moment. I sat frozen reading message after message, each one cutting deeper than the last. Before I tell you how I canceled everything and what happened after, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to stand up for yourself. I met Amanda 6 years ago at my best friend James' birthday party. She walked in wearing a red dress that matched her confident smile, and I was immediately drawn to her. Something about her charisma filled the room. When our eyes met across the crowded apartment, I felt that movie moment connection everyone talks about but few experience. We ended up talking for hours on the balcony, discovering our similar ambitions and dreams. Our first few dates showed so much promise. We talked endlessly about our careers, our childhoods in neighboring towns, and our shared love of hiking. Amanda worked in marketing while I had just been promoted at my architecture firm. We both valued ambition and independence, which seemed like the perfect foundation for a relationship. After dating for a year, we decided to move in together. It felt like the natural next step. We found a 2-bedroom apartment downtown with a view of the city skyline. Those early days of living together were filled with home-cooked meals, weekend adventures, and planning our future. I supported Amanda when she decided to change careers and go into event planning. She supported me when I took a risk on a new position that required longer hours but offered better growth opportunities. 2 years into our relationship, we saved enough for a down payment on our first home. It was a fixer-upper, but with my architecture background, I saw the potential. We spent weekends painting walls, replacing fixtures, and turning that house into our home. Those were some of my favorite memories, with Amanda working side by side toward a common goal. On our 4th anniversary, I took Amanda hiking to Eagle Peak, her favorite mountain. When we reached the summit at sunrise, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. The diamond ring caught the first rays of morning light as tears filled her eyes. She said yes immediately, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. We spent the whole hike down planning our future together. The excitement of wedding planning took over our lives in the months that followed. Amanda, with her event planning background, naturally took charge of most arrangements. I was happy to let her lead since she had more expertise and strong opinions about what made a perfect wedding. My parents were incredibly supportive and contributed significantly to our $75,000 budget. They even sold a piece of land that had been in our family for generations to help fund what Amanda called our dream wedding. I was grateful for their generosity and wanted everything to be perfect, but I started noticing Amanda becoming increasingly controlling about every detail. At first, I dismissed it as normal wedding stress. Planning a large event is overwhelming for anyone, and I wanted to be understanding. The first real sign of trouble came when Amanda insisted on inviting her ex-boyfriend Marcus and his entire family to the wedding. When I expressed discomfort with this, she accused me of being insecure and reminded me that his mother had connections to several celebrities who might attend. It seemed like an odd justification, but I wanted her to be happy. As planning continued, Amanda began dismissing my opinions on important decisions. When I suggested a band that we both loved for the reception, she rolled her eyes and said my music taste was too basic for a sophisticated wedding. When my mother offered to make her famous apple pie alongside our wedding cake, a family tradition, Amanda laughed and said it would look tacky, next to her 5-tier champagne and raspberry masterpiece. The budget kept expanding, as Amanda insisted on unnecessary extravagances like ice sculptures, rare out-of-season flowers flown in from South America, and custom-designed bridesmaid dresses. When I brought up financial concerns, she would remind me that this was a once-in-a-lifetime event that we would remember forever. What bothered me more than the spending were the comments I occasionally overheard her making to her friends. On several occasions, she referred to my family as simple or unsophisticated. Once, while on the phone with her maid of honor, Jessica, I heard her say, "I just hope his country bumpkin relatives remember to wear shoes." My family might not have the social connections hers did, but they were good, hard-working people who were helping to fund this entire event. Despite these red flags, I convinced myself that everything would settle down after the wedding. I loved Amanda and was committed to our future together. People get stressed during wedding planning, I told myself. This is not the real her. With 2 months until the wedding, tensions grew higher. We argued about the guest list, the venue details, and even the table settings. Amanda spent more time with her bridesmaids than with me, often having long planning sessions that I was explicitly not invited to. She became strange about her phone, always keeping it face down and taking calls in another room. When I asked her about certain wedding details, she would give vague answers or change the subject entirely. I felt increasingly isolated and confused. This should have been one of the happiest times in our lives, but instead, I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. Still, I remained committed to making our relationship work. After all, we had 5 years of history and a lifetime of promises ahead of us. 2 weeks before the wedding, Amanda's behavior became even more secretive. She was constantly texting her bridesmaids and having hushed phone conversations that would abruptly end when I entered the room. Several times I walked in on her laughing with her friends, only for them to suddenly go silent and exchange knowing looks. Once I clearly overheard a fragment of conversation about his face, when it happens, followed by muffled laughter. When I asked what they were talking about, Amanda smiled sweetly and said, "Just some surprise wedding details, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." I tried to dismiss my growing unease. Wedding surprises are normal, right? Maybe they were planning something special for me. But the knot in my stomach tightened every time I caught them whispering or saw Amanda pull her phone away when I approached. Then came the day that changed everything. Amanda was taking a shower, and her phone left unlocked on the coffee table, lit up with a notification. I normally respected her privacy, but I saw my name in the group chat preview. Roger is going to absolutely die when. I sat there staring at her phone, debating with myself. Was it wrong to look? Was I being paranoid? But then I remembered all the secretive behavior, the whispers, the strange comments. With a shaking hand, I picked up the phone. What I found shattered my world into a million pieces. The group chat was titled Operation Humiliate Roger and included all 6 of her bridesmaids. As I scrolled through weeks of messages, I felt physically ill. They had an elaborate plan to publicly embarrass me during our wedding vows. Amanda was going to start with beautiful, seemingly heartfelt vows, then transition to what she called the real truth. She planned to list all of my insecurities and perceived shortcomings in front of our 200 guests. Things I had shared with her in private moments of vulnerability. The speech included jokes about my receding hairline the time I was laid off 3 years ago, and even intimate details about our relationship that no one should know. She had shared screenshots of our private conversations with the entire group. They mocked a heartfelt letter I had written her on our anniversary. They laughed about my close relationship with my mother. Worst of all, they made crude jokes about my sexual performance with Amanda, providing humiliating details that made me feel violated just reading them. The final part of their plan was to have someone film my reaction, which Amanda predicted would go viral. They had even discussed which social media platforms would get them the most views. Jessica suggested adding hashtags like groomroast and vowfail. I sat there, phone in hand, for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. My heart raced so fast I thought it might explode. My stomach lurched and I barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. The shower was still running. I put the phone back exactly where it had been and left the apartment. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to process the fact that the woman I thought I would spend my life with had been plotting to humiliate me on what should have been the happiest day of our lives. I walked around our neighborhood for hours, replaying every moment of our relationship in my mind. Had there always been this cruel streak in her that I had missed? How many of our intimate moments had she shared with her friends for their entertainment? How could someone who claimed to love me take such pleasure in planning my public humiliation? I checked into a hotel that night. I could not face Amanda, not yet. I needed time to think. Sleep was impossible, as questions raced through my mind. When had our relationship turned into this? When had I become a joke to her? I remembered how over the years Amanda had gradually pulled me away from my close friends, always having a reason why we could not attend their events, or why they could not come to our place. By morning, I knew I needed answers. I returned to our apartment, mentally prepared for the confrontation that would follow. Amanda was in the kitchen, looking worried. "Where have you been?" "I was about to call the police," she exclaimed, rushing toward me. "I know about Operation Humiliate Roger," I said quietly, watching her face for a reaction. Her expression shifted quickly from confusion to shock to defensive anger. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. "I saw the group chat. Amanda. I know what you and your bridesmaids are planning for our wedding." She laughed nervously. "You went through my phone. That is such an invasion of privacy, Roger. I cannot believe you would do that." I remained calm. "That is what you are concerned about, not the fact that you were planning to humiliate me in front of our friends and family." Her strategy changed instantly. "It was just a joke, Roger. We were not actually going to do it." "God, you are so sensitive sometimes. You are completely overreacting." I showed her the screenshots I had taken, pointing out specific messages dated just the day before. She grew more defensive, her voice rising, as she accused me of ruining the wedding preparation by snooping. The conversation quickly escalated. "Fine," she shouted. "If you are going to be this paranoid, maybe we should just cancel the whole thing." There was not a hint of remorse in her eyes, not a single acknowledgement of how deeply she had hurt me. In that moment, with absolute clarity, I knew I could not marry her. "You know what?" I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I think that is exactly what we should do." The decision was painful, but somehow I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I had narrowly escaped a future of manipulation and disrespect. I called James, my best friend, who came over immediately. I showed him the screenshots, and his face darkened with anger. "I cannot believe she would do this to you," he said. "What are you going to do?" "I am canceling everything," I told him. "All of it." Breaking the news to my parents was one of the hardest conversations of my life. They had contributed so much, both financially and emotionally, to this wedding. When I showed them the messages, my mother cried and my father put his arm around my shoulders. "Son," they both said, "we are with you 100%. You deserve someone who treasures you." Their unconditional support gave me the strength for what came next. I took the following day off work and began the process of systematically canceling every wedding arrangement. Each call was another twist of the knife, another reminder of what should have been. But with each cancellation, I also felt the weight lifting slightly from my shoulders. The first shock came when I called the venue. They informed me that while a 50% deposit had been made, the second payment that Amanda had told me she handled was never received. When I called the caterer, they had no record of the final menu selection or the deposit that should have been paid the previous month. The same pattern repeated with the florist, the photographer, and the DJ. A sick feeling grew in my stomach as I checked our joint accounts. Large sums had indeed been withdrawn over the past months, supposedly for these vendors. Where had the money gone? Further investigation revealed several unexplained charges on our joint credit cards for expensive clothing, spa treatments, and even a weekend getaway that Amanda had told me was a work retreat. The financial betrayal stung almost as badly as the emotional one. She had been lying about so many things for so long. With each discovery, the woman I thought I knew disappeared further into a stranger. Next came the hardest part, notifying our guests. I spent hours crafting an email that explained the wedding was canceled without going into the humiliating details. Despite everything Amanda had planned to do to me, I could not bring myself to expose her to the same public embarrassment. The email simply stated that due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding would not be taking place. I apologized for any inconvenience and offered to personally reimburse anyone who had non-refundable travel arrangements. The responses came flooding in almost immediately. Friends and family expressed their concern and support. Many offered to help in any way they could. Their kindness was overwhelming and reminded me that I was not alone. Amanda's family, however, was another story. Her mother called, demanding to know what had happened. Her father emailed, suggesting we try counseling before making such a drastic decision. They had no idea what their daughter had been planning, and I chose not to tell them. That would be Amanda's responsibility if she chose to be honest with them. When Amanda realized I was serious about canceling the wedding, she unleashed a storm. First came the angry calls and text messages, accusing me of ruining her life and wasting years of her time. When that did not work, she switched to tearful apologies and promises that it was all a misunderstanding. When I remained firm, she threatened legal action for the deposits and expenses. I moved temporarily to my parents' house to escape the constant barrage. Amanda showed up there twice, creating scenes in the front yard, until my father firmly but politely asked her to leave. On social media, she began posting cryptic messages about betrayal and being abandoned just before her wedding, carefully crafting her image as the victim. I maintained my silence, knowing that engaging would only prolong the pain. The day that would have been our wedding arrived with an unexpected sense of peace. I woke up early and went for a long run, feeling the weight of what might have been, but also the freedom of having stood up for myself. James and a few close friends came over that afternoon, bringing food and distractions. We played video games and watched movies, a simple gathering that meant more to me than they could know. Amanda made one final attempt to contact me that day, leaving a voicemail that swung wildly between apologetic and accusatory. I listened once, then deleted it and blocked her number. That evening I drove alone to Eagle Peak and hiked to the summit where I had proposed. As the sun set over the valley below, I finally allowed myself to fully grieve the relationship and the future I had thought we would share. But alongside the grief was a growing sense that I had escaped something toxic, that in time this pain would fade, and I would be grateful. The weeks following what should have been my wedding day were focused on practical matters. I untangled our finances, moved my belongings out of our shared home into a small but comfortable apartment, and threw myself into my work. The routine helped giving structure to days that might otherwise have been consumed by regret and anger. I started seeing a therapist to process the betrayal and understand how I had missed so many warning signs. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize the subtle pattern of isolation and control that had developed over the years. Amanda had slowly separated me from my support network, making critical comments about my friends, until I saw them less and less. She had dismissed my opinions and preferences so often that I had started to doubt my own judgment. Reconnecting with old friends was both healing and eye-opening. Several told me they had been concerned about my relationship, but did not know how to bring it up. James introduced me to his new group of friends, who welcomed me without knowing my story or judging me for it. Slowly, I rebuilt my social circle with people who valued authenticity over appearance. The most unexpected support came from Amanda's cousin Sophia, who reached out a month after the cancellation. Over coffee, she confessed that she had known about the plan and had been uncomfortable with it, but had not spoken up. She apologized sincerely and shared that several family members had noticed Amanda's treatment of me over the years, but had attributed it to wedding stress. Her honesty helped me realize that I had not been crazy to feel undervalued in the relationship. 6 months after the canceled wedding, I had gained a new perspective on what had happened. Looking back, I could see red flags that I had ignored or excused Amanda dismissing my feelings, making decisions without consulting me. The subtle put-downs disguised as jokes, the constant need to impress others at any cost. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that recognizing these patterns would help me build healthier relationships in the future. I focused on rebuilding my life on my own terms. I rediscovered passions that Amanda had subtly discouraged: playing guitar, weekend camping trips, volunteer work with Habitat for Humanity. I reconnected with my family, spending Sundays at my parents' house and helping my sister with her new baby. The simple joy of these connections reminded me of what real love felt like. The financial aftermath was challenging, but manageable. I had lost a significant amount of money in non-refundable deposits and the mysterious expenses Amanda had charged to our joint accounts. Rather than pursuing a lengthy legal battle, I chose to accept the loss and move forward. My parents insisted on helping me get back on my feet, but I was determined to rebuild my savings through my own hard work. 1 year after what would have been my wedding day, I attended a charity auction for the Architectural Preservation Society. While examining a display of historical building photographs, I literally bumped into Catherine, a woman I had known casually through work circles years before. We laughed about my clumsiness and she asked if I would explain the architectural significance of some of the buildings in the photos. That conversation led to coffee, which led to dinner the following week. Unlike my whirlwind beginning with Amanda, my connection with Catherine developed slowly and naturally. We took our time getting to know each other, both having experienced relationships that moved too quickly in the past. She was straightforward, and genuine qualities I now recognized as essential. When I finally shared what had happened with my engagement, she listened without judgment and thanked me for trusting her with my story. The differences between my relationship with Catherine and what I had experienced with Amanda were striking. Where Amanda had made unilateral decisions, Catherine valued collaboration. Where Amanda had used my vulnerabilities against me, Catherine created a safe space for honesty. Most importantly, Catherine had her own full life, with career ambitions, close friends, and personal interests that she maintained even as our relationship grew. Through this journey, I learned lessons that changed how I view myself and my relationships. I learned that self-respect is not selfish, but necessary, that standing up for yourself is an act of self-love. I recognized that real love does not demand you become smaller or change who you are at your core. I understood that my instincts were worth listening to, even when they whispered warnings I did not want to hear. Perhaps the most important lesson was that walking away from something that hurts you, even when you have invested years of your life in it, can be the bravest decision you will ever make. It is not failure to recognize when something is wrong and to choose a different path. Today, I can honestly say I am grateful for what happened. Not for the pain or the betrayal, but for the clarity it eventually brought. If I had gone through with that wedding, I might have spent years in a relationship with someone who did not truly respect or value me. Instead, I found the courage to start over and build a life that feels authentic and meaningful. If you have ever had to make a difficult choice that hurt in the moment, but saved you from worse pain later, share your experience in the comments below. I would love to hear how you found the strength to make that decision. Do not forget to like this video. If my story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming betrayal and finding strength, and share with someone who might need to hear that better things await on the other side of difficult decisions. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes in our lives.